Assalamu alaikum. In this segment, we're going to dig a little deeper into the concept of the spelling of the words in the Quran and the variations on spelling of words in the Quran to show you the amazing discoveries and new knowledge that resulted from that investigation and research. So to start, I want to share with you a verse that I find extremely interesting from verse number 105 of Surah Yusuf, which is chapter number 12. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that verse or in that ayah is telling us وَكَأَيٍّ مِّنْ آيَةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ يَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ عَنْهَا مُعْرِضُونَ. And such is the example of any sign in the heavens and the earth that people pass by while not paying attention. Now, what's really interesting about this verse is that the first word in it, وَكَأَيٍّ, is, when you look at it very closely, it's spelled wrong. In other words, it's spelled not like the way the word كَأَيٍّ is usually spelled in Arabic. And the concept is that people don't pay attention. The concept of the whole verse is that you look at it, but you don't pay attention to it. And that's exactly what the verse is showing. It's showing, look, inside this verse that I'm telling you you're not paying attention is something to which you're not paying attention to. And it's just an amazing example, beautiful example of how the Quran is putting it right in our face. Pay attention. Look at the script, the exact writing, the exact spelling of these words, and you will find amazing things. Now, we're going to dive into a very interesting application of this concept. The application concerns the word imra'at in Arabic, and it has two different spellings. One with a short ta, as I show you, and one with a long ta. It sounds exactly the same, imra'at or imra'a, but when you look at it within the context of the verse, the variation of the spelling provide two different meanings, completely unrelated to one another. And let's dive into this. I've done the research concerning all the verses that contain this word, and I found all of them except 4 spell the word imra'at with a long ta. And the word imra'at with a long ta means a woman who is under control or under supervision or under the authority of a man. And in Arabic, the word tahta is the key definition of this word imra'at with the long ta. And we see it in Surah At-Tahrim, which is Surah number 66, verse number 10. ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط. Notice that it's with a long ta both times. كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا. And he's giving us a definition. They were under the control or under the supervision or under the authority of 2 of our good servants, so to speak. And this is the definition. The definition is that this is a female that's under the authority of a man, right? That's the word imra'at with a long ta. Now, as I said, all the verses are that use the word imra'at spell it this way, except 4. And these 4 are very interesting. So let's visit them one at a time. The first one is in Surah An-Nisa, verse number 12. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن كَانَ رَجُلٌ يُورَثُ كَلَالَةً أَوْ امْرَأَةٌ. If a man who is being inherited, and he is in that situation, meaning no direct descendants or wife, or father or mother, who are alive obviously, and if it was a woman, the same thing. In that case, that woman doesn't have a husband, doesn't have children, doesn't have a father or a mother. Imra'at is spelled with a round ta. And you can see it for yourself. I put a circle around it. In Surah An-Nisa 128, the same use of the word imra'at with a round ta. وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا نُشُوزًا أَوْ إِعْرَاضًا. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing a woman who has been estranged from her husband, meaning they're separated. He has left her and she's left alone, and therefore she's under no supervision nor authority. She's as good as independent, basically, and she's described as imra'at with a round ta. Surah number 27, Surah An-Naml, verse number 23. This is amazing because this really gives us the clear definition of that word. The story is about the hoopoe bird who was sent by Prophet Sulaiman to get some information, and he comes back from Saba or Sheba, and he describes the queen of Sheba to the Prophet Sulaiman, and he's describing her, and the Quran says, "Inni wajadtu imra'atan tamlikuhum." I found a woman who rules over them. And obviously that woman is not under the authority of anybody else. In that case, imra'a is spelled with a round ta. And in the last case, Surah Al-Ahzab, number 50, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing a situation where a woman comes and proposes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She wants to get married, and she offers herself in marriage to the Prophet. And in that case, obviously, that woman is free. She's independent. And this is something unique to Islam. For the first time with Islam, marriage became a matching between a couple of independent people. So it's described in the Quran as zawaj, right? Zawj. Zawj is the couple, right? The husband or a wife. Either one is described as zawj. So back to this verse. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying a woman, a believing woman who offers herself in marriage to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam if the Prophet wants to contract with her regarding a marriage. So imra'a in this case, obviously she's free. She's not married. She's not under the authority of anybody else. And she wants to get married to the Prophet. Imra'a is spelled with a round T. And therefore, when imra'at with a long T, it means this woman is under the authority of another man. Not necessarily married. It doesn't say that she's married. As a matter of fact, before Islam, the Quran does not refer to anybody having the same concept of marriage as in Islam. So in Islam, the word nikah means the contract that establishes the marriage. And after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran refers to the husbands or wives as zawj. It's a unique word used for those people connected through Islamic marriage. Before Islam, there were no proper marriages, so to speak. Majority of women across history before Islam, and then even after Islam, outside the land of Muslims, were considered property, were considered under the authority, under the servitude, under the subservience to the man who would accept to shelter them or to take them on, and so on. And therefore the Quran uses that word for that definition as imra'at with a long ta. And this is very relevant because we're going to see now how it's used in the situation of the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. So we all heard that imra'at Fir'aun, right? And it occurred in a couple of verses in relationship to the story of Musa. One of them in Surah Al-Qasas, as shown on the screen. وَقَالَتْ امْرَأَةُ فِرْعَوْنَ قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ لِي وَلَكَ لَا تَقْتُلُوهُ عَسَىٰ أَن يَنفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. And imra'at of Pharaoh, of Fir'aun, imra'at here, it has been described as his wife. But the Quran is not saying it's his wife. He's just saying this is a woman under his authority. And as a matter of fact, through the research that I've done, I discovered that this woman is a worker within his gangs, not his wife. And inshallah, when we talk about the story of Moses in details, you're gonna see that this woman has a surprising identity, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned her. She turned out later in another verse to be a believing woman. So back to this verse where in Surah Al-Qasas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing this woman, asking the gangs not to kill Moses, not to kill Musa. And this has nothing to do with the biblical story where we were told that Musa was thrown as a baby into the river or whatever, the water, and he was picked up by so-and-so, and the wife of Pharaoh pleaded with him not to kill him. Has nothing to do with that. It's a totally different story, as we shall see when we talk about the story of Moses. Now, this was one application of this discovery of the specific spelling of the word imra'at. Another application is in Surah Yusuf, because the same situation displays itself. Imra'at al-Aziz, which is translated as the reverent one, the highly respected one. And the biblical story tells us that this Al-Aziz is, the prime minister or the viceroy who is under the authority of the king. But the story in the Quran, again, is different. Imra'at al-Aziz in this case is referring to a woman that was in employment to the king, meaning under the authority of the king, not his wife, not the wife of the reverent one or Al-Aziz, as we shall see. Again, those are all applications that opened up new understandings about the Quran based on the discovery that variations in spelling imply different meanings. And again, this is all part of the amazing, marvelous Quran that we are engaging in detail and carefully and with open eyes and reading directly from the Quran, not looking for any external sources to influence how we see what the Quran is trying to tell us. I hope this was useful. Inshallah, in future segments, we will continue with similar themes and we will discover more and more amazing things. Thank you for watching.